evening and welcome to the special meeting of Port Clinton City Council, Tuesday, November 1st. It's 5:30 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dave Bulow.
Present.
Lisa Sardi.
Present.
Beth Gilman.
Present.
Gary Trolley.
Present.
Roseanne Hickman.
Present.
Margaret Phillips.
Present.
Will Friedman.
Present.
Can I please ask for a motion to waive?
I make a motion that we suspend, I move that we suspend the originally introductory rights.
We have a second?
I'll say.
Thank you, Mrs. Sardi. All those in favor?
Aye.
The chair notes that certification has been received regarding compliance with the rules and notification of this meeting. The reason for the meeting this evening is discussing the SME Phase 2 Environmental Site Assessment Report on Waterworks Park.
Madam President.
Mr. Bulow.
Thank you. And thanks to my fellow council members for agreeing to call this special meeting. We thought it'd be good to get insight from the law director, from the mayor's office, and from the safety service director related to what they found in the final report, which was finally delivered to us to council last Friday, or this past Friday.
We don't have any recommendation at this point in time. I think there's various questions we need to answer from SME. We're trying to set up a time for that.
Tried to talk to Ann, and she's out of the office today, so we had a conversation with her, get her recommendations on where to go with the rest of this. Obviously, you guys have all read it, most of it, and have seen what it says. Recreational is where it's at right now, so that's the question you guys have.
What questions? What should be answered?
I guess I'm not sure all the questions. I thought I would take some from you guys tonight. And I want to know what her recommendation is to do. I mean, Mr. Bulow has asked before, 3 spots, 5 spots, 2 spots, 1 spot. I can't answer that without something from her. So those are the kind of questions that I think that I'm involved with.
It says in the report, I mean, it says multiple places, the carcinogenic risk to recreational receptors from direct contact exceeds the Ohio EPA VAP. There's a couple places that said it exceeds levels, which to me would say that means we have to do something. I mean, she's got recommendations in here, risk assessment performed.
I'm not sure there are recommendations. I'm sure there's a finding depending on what is going to be done with the property, what the ultimate use of the property may be in regards to those things. And I think we need to more readily define what she is saying or what SME has come to in its conclusions, and take a look at the options depending on the type of use as to the scope of what we're doing.
And
I don't think what I've addresses that at this point in time. And I think that's something that the administration needs to go back to them for and get some clearer definition of those things and areas that they've recommended at this point in time need to be addressed in some way.
And I may be confused because I'm not very schooled in this area. That's why I ask your opinions. But she gave, compliance with standards. She lays out here risk assessment performed, indicates that pre-remedial soil concentrations present unacceptable carcinogenic risk. It also mentioned several times it was changed from residential to recreational. When was that changed? I mean, it said the city changed it, and I don't recall seeing that. But we may not have seen everything. I may have missed it, not been in a meeting. And that was why, when did it? They did all this study based on residential, and then it says throughout here it actually says it was changed in the course of the study, and that bothered me just a little bit. It also there's a comment from the mayor that says that this was for open space use, and I don't recall anybody saying it was just open space use. It actually was zoned commercial. Because that's also cited in the report. So I don't know what information, she gives recommendations, and is there a phase 3? Because usually And again, I don't have background in this area, but typically phase 1, 2, 3, and I didn't see any mention of a phase 3. What's the next? You know, the no further action letter, the VAP. What's the next step, or what should we be asking for? Because it looks like this report does give recommendations. But what we do with that, I mean, 5 spots, 3 spots, 10 spots, because it references the 2008 Floyd Brown report. Those are marked. And did they just look at those spots? I don't know. I did not read all of this page by page. I don't understand it all. But she did give, I mean, she gave the cumulative risk evaluation with direct contact. I mean, it says to, avoid contact to workers in the future. I mean, it's very specific what she recommends. I don't know if that's up for us to come up with a plan, or do we need them to come back for a phase 3? What's the next step? If anybody else has any insight.
Madam President.
Mrs. Sardine?
I do have, as Mrs. Gilman said, under number 11 in this, it says that it did start as residential and commercial, and then the city's plan changed at the time of the writing of this, that it was changed to just a recreational. And I'm not sure who this Mrs. Vanessa Seegerwood Dick is. That's from the Ohio EPA. So I don't, Tracy, do you know, did a letter come from the city to change that?
I didn't send any letters, so I can't answer that.
I mean, I'm sure that it had to come from some direction of, they wouldn't have just, I wouldn't think that they would just change it from one to the other, so, without some direction. And, I agree with Mrs. Gilman also, there are some things in here that, if it needs cleaned up for the safety of our citizens, I guess we do need someone to come in and tell us, direct us, on what type of cleanup or needs to be done. And I don't know if that's Ann or.
I'm hoping it's Ann from the conversation, because the statement in here that gets me is after she says that about SB 9 and SB 206A, then as you go down it says, however, soil prevents no health risk, remediation is not needed if an NFA letter is not issued. I want some clarification, and that's what I want to talk to her about, because I agree with what Beth's saying, that she was saying, but then it says that in the next paragraph. So what is the clarification?
Well,
that's the kind of questions I want to ask.
And I read in it, they would not do the NFA letter unless remediation occurred. And again, I did not go page by page.
Exactly.
Are we still under contract with Sullivan?
And have we seen the contract?
No.
I mean, what was the scope of the contract? Were they supposed to give us recommendations? We still haven't seen the contract?
That was through the county, wasn't it?
The scope of the contract is with the Regional Planning Commission through the county grant that was there to perform phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay.
So that's what we have finally received now in October from the ship. We all got this within the last week to 10 days. It's just a matter of being able to go through it, understand some of the things that are there, and get some clarification. If you've had questions, Tracy's pointed out legitimate things there, and it depends on what action may be determined in the future as to what uses will be made of the property, as to what may or may not need to be done. And then you have to address what are the costs for those that you want you know it. So I think it's something, again, that Tracy, Cole, myself need to talk with representatives at SME. If we need to retain them again, we need to get a proposal from them as to what the cost of their services might be, so that can be worked into the budget and determine the information needed and come back to council with a report at that time. I think it's all premature at this time, given the questions that you've already raised.
Madam President, I have a question in that same area on section 11, where it says that the city's plans changed at the time of the writing, shifting it from lots commercial. But when did we approve changing it to strictly residential? Did we vote on that?
No, that's a question I'll ask Ann. That's why I'm jotting it down. What I guess I would ask is all these questions you have, shoot me emails tomorrow if you can, or even tonight, I'll get them tomorrow. And I'm trying to get a hold of Ann for a conversation today. She said she'd try to get a hold of me tomorrow. So I'd like to have these questions. That's one of the reasons I want to come. It'd be easier, instead of jotting them all down, if you guys would email specific questions that you have. You know some of the questions I've already raised myself, but I have questions. I'll ask that question, Margaret, that you want to know. That's what I think has to happen. I agree with George. Let's get them answered. Come back to you with a full report. And I don't know the timing. I'll let you know when I talk to her how long she thinks it'll be before she gives me all the answers to my questions. Get it in an email form and pass it out to you guys as far as that goes. So you'll see right from what she answers.
Mr. Goldsby, will she answer these questions not being under contract with us?
She acted like she would for the little conversation I talked to her. She's at some conference or something. I took a 5-minute phone call.
I'm really concerned that we don't have something with them. I mean, yeah, this report out there that's, I mean,
Well, the second thing that George said, we need a contract for services. We need to have that. Then you guys decide the scope that we're going to go with that. So.
Madam President,
Mr. Vila?
the last time the Finance Committee made a request to the mayor to have Ann come and present information, answer questions before we had this, his response was she won't do anything because she's not under contract. We have what I view as a full report. I'm not sure what next report there would be. I mean, this is a finished product that was circulated to us as we finally have the finished product. On page 22 of the hard copy you gave us tonight, it says, Mr. Gilman already mentioned part of it, pre-remedial soil concentrations present an unacceptable carcinogenic risk and remediation and institutional controls are required. That seems fairly clear to me, and I worry that not acting promptly on something as explicit as that in a 500-page document, that troubles me greatly. Mayor Wheeler already got an April 4th quote from environmental remediation contractors. Mr. Colson provided this to us at the last Finance Committee meeting for $20,000, $750 for 90 tons of soil excavation, loading, transportation, disposal, import and place, 90 tons, taking it up to a total of over $20,000. This is back in April 4th of this year. So clearly he's getting, it references an above reference project, and there's no above reference in this copy we were given. We've asked to know what that is, so clearly somebody in this building knows what the problem is and was getting quotes for it, and since April 4th until Mayor Leone came and presented the map that he had at his disposal right after he lost the election, it was silence from this building on this topic. It was always, we're waiting, we're waiting. So how can we get a quote if we didn't have at least enough information in the draft report? I'm pretty positive there's a draft report if there's enough information to get what Mayor Wheeler said at the last Finance Committee meeting in this room back on April 29th, over a month ago, that I think he said 80 cubic yards of dirt is what we need. And he seemed pretty darn sure about that. It took 3 weeks for the Finance Committee meeting to get this quote. We're still waiting for background information on what that means. So clearly he had enough urgency or reason to ask somebody for a quote. And at the last Finance Committee meeting in this room on the 29th, he said, I think Ann is talking to another contractor to see if she can get us a better quote. He said that there's only one spot that needs to be cleaned. We need to do something about. There are two other questionable spots for a total of 3. That's where I kept asking and asking, still haven't heard. Why 3 and not the 5 on the circles of the circles that were provided in the map from Mayor Leone here, and they still exist in the final report that we were given electronically on Friday. So somebody has information, we're not getting it, we're requesting it because we think it's in the best interest of this city to do something about it. Meanwhile, we're having festivals down there. The Homecoming Festival was pushed to Waterworks Park instead of being downtown. How can this information just not be there? It's disappointing that the mayor's not here. He does not respond to requests from any of my committees or me personally. It's incredibly disappointing. And then we come here and Mr. Colson, I feel sorry for you because you weren't even kept in the loop on this. And that says something to me when it's not a priority, that the safety service director is not kept on in the loop since the mayor took office regarding this project. If anyone here has any answers about any of the questions I just raised, I'd love to hear them. Mr. Colson, the fact that you never saw a letter or anything going out saying, SME, please do the report not under residential standards, which was the original agreement, but do it recreational, and they come up with a recreational standard, and they can provide calculations, and they say that's signed off by EPA, fine. But the fact that you weren't even aware that it was bumped up to a recreational, a less stringent standard, that troubles me as well.
Well, there's actually in that phase one that we got email on, it says Mayor Wheeler indicated da-da-da-da. He also indicated that the land is to be left as open space for the community to use. I'm guessing that whenever that was, that this is phase one, so I don't know how phase one got into phase two or when it was ongoing. But that statement is in that report that we got. So I'm assuming he must have told her recreational, or him saying open space, they assume recreational. I don't know. But that's,
And then with it being zone commercial, you know,
it's a difference.
are we obligated to, if something would go down there, do
The
due
report,
diligence?
it has clear recommendations. It says construction workers should not be exposed to groundwater. I mean, there's very clear statements in here. I don't think they're up for question. You know, keep questioning her. You know, that's why, what's the next step? Is there a place? I mean, they say you have to remediate. We have maps. I mean, it would be nice to have her, you know, prioritize maybe. We need this, this, and this. And maybe that's what those three numbers are and why we got the 20,000 quote. I don't know. But that's a lot of data to not have them come and present or give recommendations. But in here, I mean, it says, you know, we recommend this. We recommend that a risk mitigation plan be prepared. I mean, they say what they recommend, so. I agree with Mr. Beal. This looks like a complete report. I mean, this is clearly a thorough report. And was there more information? Because we know that came out in April. What happened between then and now? But the mayor could answer that possibly. Mr. Holtzman.
Madam President, if the ground is commercial listed out there, but this is presumed to be residential, does that make this thing null and void for the most part?
Mr. Wilmer.
This document you got, two documents you got, a phase one and phase two study of the activities on the property, is to report what the findings are based on the research, the testing of various areas. Yeah, it depends what happens next, what needs to be done depends on what the ultimate use of the property is going to be, and defining what the city wants to do. Does the city want to proceed with a covenant not to sue or with no further action letter? And if that's the case, then there's a whole other process to go through. You're going to spend another year or longer going through that process. It's going to be more time consuming and expensive because there'll be additional things that will need to be addressed and done with the EPA. And it may open up other issues or other requests for more testing than what's already been done. Now, if the area is going to be used as recreational, there's one criteria that they would apply to it. If it's going to be used as residential, there's a different criteria that's applied to it. And if it's used as commercial, there's somewhat of a mix of a criteria. And those all would be driven by what the ultimate use of the property may be. And when you get down to that, what area is going to be used for what? Is there just a small area that's going to be looked at is potential development, and the rest is going to be open space. There's just a lot of questions, and while they say there are various areas that may need to be remediated, what is the size, location? Part of it needs to be remediated. What's the extent of the? Those are all questions that aren't particularly answered by this report. I believe SME probably has that information and can guide decisions, but those are all questions that I believe, in discussing this with Mr. Colson the last few days, we need to get that information so that we can come back to council with that. You got a report that's dated October 1st or September 30th or something?
September 30th.
September 30th.
And here you are, the 1st of November. You just got this around the 18th and 19th of this month. So I think the city is moving forward with due diligence based on what it's got to come up with the information and come back to council and inform them of these things.
So then, do you think that there will be something that will be on the agenda for next week's council?
I can't tell you that.
We're not at that point, right?
We will need to talk with S&P, and I'm sure they'll talk with us on the phone regarding what's in it, and whether they would come to a meeting without some additional compensation. That's usually a different animal. They're usually reporting or answering questions over the phone or clarifying things from the report over the phone. I don't think Tracy will have a problem talking to them. But I think those are the type of things we initially have to address, and then come back, and then there'll be some decisions. And decisions on how to proceed with those matters at that point, and then other issues, depending on what council decides as a policy matter of the use of the property. And once that's decided, that's council's role. Then it's the administration that takes over from there to deal with the fundamentals of the execution of what that is.
Madam President,
Mr. Wheeler?
Mr. Wilbur, my concern is that none of this information had been shared, and I doubt we would have it today if third parties didn't bring it to our attention. Mayor Leon brought it to us over a month ago at a council meeting here. That conversation went well. Well, then we got some additional information. And then Mrs. Sardi learned through the courthouse that something had been delivered, the final report. Well, then the mayor delivers it to us. So as far as policy matters, I don't see how we could make it when there's no proactive response when it comes to this. And page, well, I only have it on the PDF, not on what's in front of us here, but it says, excuse me. Benzopyrene only exceeded the recreational land use standard, so less stringent standard, within the 2 feet point of compliance at the spot SOA Warren 9. It's on page 24 of the SDF. So it's not just future land use, but it's what's being used for today is what I'm concerned about. So based on just the recreational standards, how it's sitting out there today, there's one spot that says it exceeds those standards, even at the recreational less stringent area. And because the mayor got a quote back in April, that tells me that he had some sense of that something would need to be done back in April, but nothing has been done. And that's how it's being used today. That's not necessarily forward-looking about how the ground is going to look or what the future land use is going to be. That's current land use, which is addressed in the report as well.
And we were also told, and I was led to believe until I saw this report, that there's no standard for recreational. And there may not be. However, it says in here, the recreational standards were calculated, and they did so by cutting exposure 350 days down to 120 days. So you're only looking at 120 days. At 120 days, and they list the exposure pathways, they still say the carcinogenic risk to recreational receptors from direct contact exceeds the Ohio EPA VAP acceptable risk. And to me, without him, I don't want soil there that's exceeding a recreational risk. I mean, that's a stricter standard, it seems, not less. I mean, they went from 350 down to 120 days. And it says it clearly in several spots. I mean, I think they're giving recommendations here. I mean, some of this can't be questioned. I don't know what further questions we could have, other than forming a plan of action, which they say we need to remediate. They won't be an NFA unless we have remediation, is how I took it. I don't know how the rest of you took it. Or a VAP. But like Mr. Velo said, it's getting the information. I mean, this could go on, and we sit on it, and now this could be an issue. I mean, there's some areas of concern in there for sure. But it does address how they did recreational, which I was led to believe we had no idea what that was, but it's in the report.
Madam President,
Mr. Friedman?
this one I'm going to direct more towards the law director, Mr. Rogan. Wouldn't it behoove us to have the EPA at least come in and take a look at these numbers? Maybe even this Ms. Vanessa Seeger will dig and look at these numbers and make sure that we're all understanding it properly. And obviously, I don't have a PhD in this, so when I read the numbers, it's kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I would think the EPA would have a responsibility to the city to at least look at this report.
Well, again, I think that goes back to getting some final information from SME in regard to the phase 2 study they did, and anything specific that they are identifying or recommending in the location, and then a decision of what standard we want to have would dictate whether we file with the EPA or not. As you can see in the documentation that was provided, there was a number of things that have gone back and forth with the EPA and that were clarified and accepted by the EPA in the way that they went forward with the phase 2 study. Particularly looking at what recreational use standards would be. That they ran the methodology by the EPA, and the EPA concurred in the way that they were proceeding. So I think first we need to get our information together so that we can make an informed decision and action to be taken. I don't think anybody's saying action shouldn't be taken. I think it's just a matter of getting the things so we can identify what are the immediate needs that need to be addressed, where they're located, how much it is, and getting appropriate contractors quotes for doing the work. And that's what it comes down to at this point. And until we have that information, I'm not sure what more you can do.
Madam President, in 2008, and they reference the Floyd Brown Group study, and that map, if you pull that map up, a lot of the spots that are circled in red in here are the same spots that were circled in 2008. And we're 8 years past that, and there's still areas of concern. I mean, you could probably overlay the map and they're going to look at the same spots. So do we, just let it go? They referenced a report in 2013. There's a letter in the phase 1 study, Appendix J, that says, we could qualify for this brownfield funding. Did that happen? I don't know. I mean, I don't recall the whole history of land. I don't know if that ever happened. But we were eligible for a grant because you couldn't prove who had left the petroleum or other things in there. So, I mean, that was in 2013. And then, it just keeps going and going. And now here we are in 2016. We have information that's taken us months to get. And we can, plus, we need more information, need more stuff. There's a lot of information here. I agree, it'd be great to have HERCOM explain it. The EPA, I don't know, because the numbers are here. I mean, the numbers from Floyd Brown Group are the same. It looks like the same stuff they're looking at 8 years later. And that's concerning to me, and the stuff's been there for 8 years. Well, much longer than that, I'm sure. And we have study, and then what's the next step? And maybe it's time to clean it up and take action. And it is going to cost money, it is going to take time. And we do have to have more information, what's the plan, but from what I understand, there's a phase 1, a phase 2, and phase 3, and she recommends action steps. How do we go from here to there, or is that already happening, and that's why we have a quote, which we just became aware of. And I don't know who she's talking to, if it's Mr. Colson, if it's the mayor, who changed it, information, residential recreational, who is she talking to? And why aren't we getting that information?
Madam President,
Mr. Beaver.
Mr. Colson, just a couple questions for Ann. When the city made the determination to switch to a recreational future land use or anticipated land use, did that change during the writing and conduct of the Phase 2 study? Did that add any time on that? And then a follow-up to that, did that mean that any of the borings that they took, which were over 100, did any of those go to waste? Switch it to recreation, since you don't need to look at things like this. Mr. Colson, what's your understanding of where the hot spots are? Based on this document and conversations with the mayor.
Based on not necessarily that many conversations with the mayor, is those 3 spots. The 3 that are SB 9, SB 206, and I believe possibly SB 242. I had stated in here, my thought process is where it says cumulative risk about that, and that's why I want to ask for that question. That's the TPHs. That is in spot, which is off to the right, SB 242. Those are the 3 spots in my personal belief, and I'm no engineer or anything else until I have Ann, I won't officially say which way. That's what I understand to be the case.
And one of those spots is adjacent to the playground?
Behind the playground, I think. I don't know the exact spot. That's the question Mr. Wilbur brought up. Is it the whole area? Is it just one spot in that area? I don't know the answer to that. I can't answer that.
I suspect someone knows because there was this quote, so that's,
All I did is provide you with that.
I understand. I'm saying enough information was delivered to this ERC group to come up with a quote. That's a follow-up question. Okay.
I'll get you all the answers I can. I'll ask all the questions that you guys want to put out there. We'll stay on top of this from my end at this point. That's all I can say to you about the rest of it.
Including how it can go from commercial.
I'll find out all the questions that you guys provide to me, and the questions I wrote down today. So that's how I'm going to handle it. I will have Mr. Wilbur directly involved with those, and then I will come up with a summary that you guys will get as soon as I can. And that's gonna, like he said, I believe Ann will answer the questions. I don't believe Ann will come down there. I believe that was talked with the mayor, and I believe he talked to her, and she said she did not. Her contract's over with. Does that mean we need to start another one? One of my questions to her is, what's the new contract going to be? What's it going to cost us to get you down here to explain this? And that to me is a legitimate, fair question. Can that go to the rest of the plan if she's coming down? If we are going to remediate, I believe we probably want them or somebody like that to be able to look at these numbers and say, you're taking this spot out, or this spot out, or this spot out. That's what I want to know. Those are the kind of questions for me that I'm going to ask. So
I would invite you to ask the mayor, because the last time we sat in this room for finance committee, he said 80 cubic feet. He was
Okay.
pretty darn sure.
okay.
80 cubic yards.
I don't know that conversation that was had. I can't answer that, and I will not. I don't have any other information besides that. So, I know that we got it. I got it out when you and I have had this conversation on the 19th, was when I opened the box. I was in his office. Went to Mr. Wilbur's. He was not there. He was gone, and so he didn't get it until last week. So that's where we started with the process from my end. And I've read it since last Thursday or Friday.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Madam President,
Mr. Beal?
Mr. Colson, Mr. Wilbur, what about blocking off those areas until we get, physically blocking them off until we get clarity around this?
I think it's premature till I talk to Ann tomorrow. It's my personal opinion. And I will ask that question.
Blocking it off costs nothing.
Understand that?
I understand that can look troubling, folks coming by, the legal aspects of what's in here, and then there's also just a general concern about residents' trust in us, ability to digest a 500-page document. I didn't understand, or I had to do a lot of Googling of different terms and stuff in there, but I think it's written clearly in English, and there are certainly areas that cause me great concern. The fact that it's just delay after delay after delay, and even after it was delivered here in hard copy on the 17th, right, Mr. Wilson, that it was approaching 2 weeks before we received any notice of it. So I continue to think, and I said this at the last finance committee, that this is not a priority to the administration. Otherwise, Mr. Colson would have been involved. He'd have more information to give us now. The mayor would be here unless he has a conflict. But I feel like this is the opposite of transparency on something incredibly important. That all of us have known in the back of our mind that this is something that's been a problem with the plan. What more do we need? So I appreciate if you can get those answers and
I'll get them as fast as I can. And release
do
it.
the answer they can say.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Madam President. Mr. Wilbur, does this open us up as council to potential lawsuit in the future? Because we now have this information, and if a child were to become sick or a construction worker, and we had this information and did nothing, does that put us in a position for a potential lawsuit in the future?
Yeah, difficult question to answer, but you can never stop lawsuits from being filed, whether they have merit or no merit. So whether you have this or you don't have this, and someone wants to pursue a lawsuit and wants to file something, whether it has merits, will have to be determined.
Because I know Cord has, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have heard Cord for a number of years clarify that there is, possible carcinogens in Waterworks Park, and that is, probable reason for it to never be developed. And I know, Mr. Noter, you have brought attention to that. I believe maybe Ms. Clemens has also. I've heard of this for many, many years. So I just want to, clarify that, now we're aware of this. All of us are.
There's a number of allegations made over the years in regard to a number of things in the area. A number of them have not proven to be truthful or bear fruit. We've got a report now that identifies limited areas to take a look at, and I think we need to identify those areas and then determine the best way to proceed with addressing them. That's where we are.
Thank you, Mr.
What more
Wilbur.
to say?
Thank you.
Madam President, I have one more thing. Mr. Colston, could you contact regional planning, since they're the one that wrote the grant, to see if they have a copy of that contract? And then that way we can possibly have Mr. Wilbur to look at it to make sure everything has been met. Possibly there's something in there stating she was should have come back and given us a final presentation, and that way we know if every element of that contract is met also.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Madam President, I have a question for Mr. Wilbur. It's zoned commercial, correct? Even though it says residential anywhere. In the event something does come up that we would like to build there or in the future or whatever, it doesn't have to go again before some kind of legislation, does it? In order to ensure that it's commercial still and not to be changed to residential without our okay? Or recreational, sorry, recreational.
They're not addressing the zoning in any of these reports, if that's your question.
So it
There's
can,
no impact.
so it can either be commercial because it was zoned that way or recreational if we choose.
All they're talking about is the standards to be applied to the property.
Property.
They're not talking about what it was zoned for or what the zoning may allow or may not allow.
Any other questions? So I would ask that any questions that you do have that you would like Mr. Colston to get to Ann, you get those emailed to him this evening so that he has them for his phone conversation for tomorrow. Seeing no other
Madam
business.
President,
Mr. Beal.
I move that council direct the safety service director and mayor to come up with a mitigation plan by week's end.
I'll second that.
I guess just a comment, I think that's premature to say you're gonna come up with a mediation in 3 days when you haven't even talked with the engineer that prepared a report that has anything, and it's gonna involve a lot more than that. I don't disagree that they ought to move forward and do something. Maybe the standard should be that, you know, they report on it at each regular council meeting over the next month and come up with a plan, but until we talk with the people, get a better idea of the scope of what may need to be done. And my guess is that they have people that they work with, that they can provide us with some estimate of cost that can go back to Mr. Hatfield. We're looking at the money in the budget, or whether the budget needs to be amended to cover that. I think that's just premature to set that kind of timeline. I don't know what that quote is even for. It's talking about so many cubic yards. Maybe all they were given was, what would it be to remove so many cubic yards?
That wasn't
of
the
fill
impression I got from the mayor. I could be wrong,
Yeah,
you're right.
and I wasn't
You-
there and I don't know.
Right, you
But
could be
again,
right.
there's a number of questions, and until you have the answers to those
Right.
questions.
We're just having a
and
hard
have some
time getting
detail on
information. I hope you
things,
understand
And
that.
you're just spinning your wheels.
Right, and that's
Let the
frustrating.
administration, let Tracy do the job that he's, you know, appointed to do. And he can come back to council with the report as to this is the recommendation. Yeah, that's the way to proceed.
I understand, but we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and it just gets a little bit frustrating. I mean, they refer back to the 2008 Floyd Brown. Do we wait another 8 years? I don't, you know, maybe week's end is a little bit aggressive by Mr. Beal. But I think there probably does need to be some kind of timeline so that they can, so we also make sure Ian follows up, you know, you know, Tracy may not be able to enforce that without seeing the contract. I don't know if Mrs. Hardy said, does it say she has to report to us? You know, we don't have the information. So we just wait for the information and hope it appears. You know, that's what we've been dealing with, or that's the appearance I have. And it's just frustrating. Because now there's a little bit of information out and people get scared.
So we have a motion asking for a mitigation plan from the administration by Friday. Mr. Buell? Would you like that motion to stand? Would you like to withdraw it?
I'll withdraw it.
And I would second that withdrawal.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion? Withdrawing the mitigation.
Withdrawing.
plan.
Dave Belo,
Yes?
Lisa Sardi,
Yes.
Beth Gilman,
Yes.
Gary Frolich, Roseanne Hickman,
Yes.
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Bill Friedman.
Yes.
Mr. Buell? Nothing? Seeing no further business,
Madam President, I move this August body be adjourned.
meeting is adjourned at 6:14.